Welcome to the Crystal Self-Healer Podcast. I'm Corissa Weaver. On this podcast, we blend the magic of crystals with the science of psychology to help you break free from chaos, ditch the overwhelm, and master your emotions so you can have more energy, get more done, and feel better every day. Get ready to unlock your intuition and restore your true power as we cover how you can transform your life using crystals and self-awareness. Are you ready to get started? All right, let's go. Starting your healing journey requires you to support yourself, even when you face resistance from the effort it takes and from others who don't support your growth. Initially, change feels exciting. But as time goes on, the daily grind can make you question your choices, especially when loved ones don't honor your new path. It's no surprise that maintaining your resolve is challenging, considering 80% of New Year's resolutions are abandoned within 6 weeks. In this episode, we are going to look at how you can prioritize yourself with 3 steps to emotional well-being with crystals. Let's face it, as an empath or highly sensitive woman, your default ways of operating can make it challenging to withstand discomfort. Change is uncomfortable. While aiming for a positive outcome feels good, going all in and navigating the discomfort along the way requires you to support yourself and have your own back. So let's look at some of the things that can knock you off course or create that uncomfortable friction. Fear of conflict. If your desire to avoid conflict is what drives you, it's easy to understand why you might revert back to old behaviors if the people around you push back or you fear that they might. If you expect or receive pushback from people around you, if you don't have a solid belief in yourself and what you're creating for yourself, you may find yourself opting to repeat old habits and behaviors. Maybe you find yourself agreeing with the other person's requests, foregoing your own plans in an effort to avoid the discomfort of a potential argument. Next, desire for approval or validation. It's natural for humans to desire being liked and accepted. Just look around and you'll see a multitude of ways that this desire is carried out on a small or large scale. Clubs and teams at schools, cliques in the workplace. But if the desire for being liked inspires you to compromise your own values or desired goals, you may feel conflicted, leading you to choose things you don't really want. Maybe you ask people whose opinions you value before making decisions and allow their perspective to sway you away from something you want and haven't acknowledged your desire for. Guilt and self-sacrifice. Raise your hand if you have a deeply held feeling that it is your responsibility to look after the people you love and you historically have been compelled to prioritize their needs before your own. Empath and sensitive women tend to be very nurturing, very compassionate toward others. It's one of the reasons many people are drawn to us. Yet many of you are sacrificing your emotional and physical well-being for others in order to avoid feeling the guilt that comes with prioritizing yourself. Maybe you feel guilty for finally taking time for yourself because you're so used to putting others first and you're worried you're being selfish. The fact that these things are happening isn't something to shame yourself about because chances are you were never taught the skills you need to flourish here. You weren't given the safe space to speak up for what you want, or you didn't have people in your life that were able to support you the way you needed as you were going through challenges. the sheer amount of emotional and mental discomfort you're going to experience when you choose to prioritize yourself is enough to overwhelm a normal person, let alone someone who feels your emotions and those of others quite deeply. So if you haven't been shown or had it modeled so that you can observe it, and the people around you aren't going to prioritize you or advocate for what you want, the only thing remaining is for you to prioritize yourself and have your own back while you go about creating the life you want. Having your own back means that you are willing to stand up and advocate for yourself, your future self, with the people around you and with yourself. It's the act of prioritizing your own needs, your own health, your own dreams, even when you face resistance and pushback. The choices you make today create the life you live tomorrow. If you constantly choose to prioritize the needs of others, I want you to think about what your life will look like in the future. If you don't allow yourself the space, the time, or the opportunity to go for what you're dreaming about, do you actually think that it will just happen to materialize and manifest for you? When you're choosing to change or adjust your life, there will be people in your orbit who don't like the change. It may require them to adapt or change when they haven't been the one to opt in to making that change. This isn't to say that they don't care about your well-being, but that the changes you are making are uncomfortable for them and require them to shift and change as well, and they didn't choose that for themselves. The people in your orbit may also get angry that what they used to get from you, they no longer do. So they may throw tantrums or get angry or tell you that you're different and that they don't like it. Again, you changing is challenging them and their normal comfort, which has no bearing on you or your worth. I encourage you to stand firm in your choices and in your intention. Having your own back requires you to not get pulled back into old familiar habits and patterns, to not take the bait when someone in your orbit does that thing that triggers your guilt or desire to smooth over the situation for their emotional comfort. Here are several ways to demonstrate this. Self-validation. You create this by choosing to measure yourself on things that you determine are important to you instead of seeking the validation and approval from others. Your decision to do something is reason enough to do it. Once you decide to give yourself the validation you crave, you can release needing it from other people. And when you don't need validation from other people, you no longer feel the pressure to shift or adjust your dreams, wants, or needs to satisfy someone else. I'm going to invite you to get intentional here and start to notice when you are looking for external validation, and then choose to have your own back instead. Next, we have consistent boundaries. Boundaries are ground rules that you set for yourself, not as a way to control the actions of other people. They are actions you're going to take if something happens. I think a lot of people look at boundaries like they're fences to keep other people out or to adjust their behavior in order to keep your mental and emotional peace. The truth of the matter is that adult people get to do what they want, you included. You may wish they were to follow your lead or listen to your request and do what you want them to do, but each and every one of us has free will, the prerogative to make our own choices. Where things go off the rails is when you focus on what you want them to do instead of focusing on what you can do for yourself. So when you create a boundary, like planning time for some self-care, if someone decides that they want your time and attention at that precise time, you get to choose what boundaries you're going to enforce to have your own back. Maybe you can use locking the door if you don't want intrusions when focusing on your journaling, or going somewhere they aren't as a way of holding your boundary instead of requiring the person in your life to change. Next, we have self-compassion. One thing empath and sensitive women are really good at is holding space and compassion for other people. Yet they're not always so great at turning that superpower inward. And this oversight can make self-validation and holding boundaries more difficult if you're giving yourself reasons to prioritize someone else over you. You are human. You will make mistakes. In any moment, you are making the best decisions with the information you have available to you at the time you make that decision. I'm going to invite you to try giving yourself the same compassion that you would extend to others here. Allow yourself the same grace. And now let's look at trusting yourself. It is a lot easier to stand firm in your choices when they are ones that deeply align with your core beliefs. Choices and decisions that don't wake you up at night because you're not doubting yourself or second-guessing what you stood for. You have just as much authority and autonomy as every other person in the world, and you get to make your own decisions and do your own thing. And whether the person sitting next to you agrees or likes it is irrelevant. So I'm going to suggest that you get really clear on what it is that you value deep down in your bones so that you can start making some hard decisions or drawing the line in the sand, and then trust yourself that you have done the best you can do. And finally, there is self-advocacy. One thing I think empath and sensitive women are waiting for is someone to advocate for them the way they do for others. And unfortunately, this doesn't happen a lot of the time. And then you mix in the need for validation or the lack of self-trust or any of the other hurdles, and you find yourself twisted in knots, keeping yourself small in an effort to maintain the status quo, even when it makes you uncomfortable and keeps you from realizing your dreams. You don't need to play small to keep other people safe in their perspective or perception of you. You don't need to dim your light and shine less brightly in order to not outshine people around you. Notice when you are starting to shrink because someone is challenging you, and choose to have your own back instead. So now that you know how you can have your own back, start by understanding which of the pressures drive your reactions, and you can use the Charmed Morning Ritual worksheet. The worksheet walks you through how you can prioritize yourself and the 3 steps to emotional well-being with crystals. By being able to observe when it is happening, by interrupting the habitual behavior, taking time to pause, and then choosing to go with the intention that you have set. Use the worksheet to go through the moments when you feel the guilt, the fear of conflict, the need for validation, and get an understanding of what is going on, and then to help you redirect your brain onto things that are more in line with what you desire and want for yourself. There is a link in the show notes below where you can download this worksheet for free. I am going to suggest that you could work with Amazonite here for a number of reasons. Amazonite helps balance emotions, enhance communication, and promote harmony. It's also a wonderful crystal to work with when you are needing support and strength to set clear boundaries and communicate them in a heartfelt way. Amazonite's calming energy will help you stay calm, cool, and collected, which is great if you often find yourself reacting emotionally when you're being challenged. And the anxiety and stress you may feel when you think you're disappointing the people in your orbit can be reduced, and the guilt you plague yourself with will be lessened. Incorporate Amazonite when you're working through the Charmed Morning Ritual worksheet, as you use the sections to help you document opportunities where you can create self-validation, following through with what you're saying you're going to do, or working through the emotions that frazzle you. This episode has been brought to you by Amazonite and the power of having your own back. May we all experience the grace we offer others by prioritizing our own needs. Blessed be, my friends. All right, my friends, that wraps up this week's episode. Thank you for joining me here today on the Crystal Self-Healer podcast. If you haven't already, hit subscribe, leave a review, and take the What Crystal is Best for You quiz linked in the show notes. Join me again next week as we continue to demystify crystals, how your brain works, and how you can use them so you can have more energy, get more done, and feel better every day.